Okay, so we are ready to begin. It's been a couple minutes. Thank you everyone again for joining us today. We are so excited to join DICE and review DICE's tech salary report this year. So many golden nuggets that we will talk through. So I will introduce our speakers. If we go to the next slide, I think, yes, we have Carol-Lyn, Jardine. Am I saying that right? We just went over this. Jardine or Jardine?
Got it.
Yay. Okay. So Carol-Lyn, she is the SVP of Marketing at Dice, and we have the amazing, whom many of you already know, I'm sure, Ted Hellmuth, the Managing Director of IQ Clarity. So thank you both for joining us today. Excited to chat with you.
Great to be here, Jane.
Awesome. Let's kick it off. So I think first we're going to start out, Carol-Lyn, if you, we have a poll and then we're going to get right into the DICE report. So first poll of the day, everyone. We do have a few polls coming throughout. Please, again, keep it interactive, goes with the theme of today. The first poll is hiring challenges. What are your biggest hiring challenge, or what is your biggest hiring challenge right now? We'll give a 30 seconds for everyone to submit that. You should be able to just click a button and choose one. Yes, I see them coming in. On my end, I can see the back and forth of everything changing. Very cool to see. I'll give it a minute because more are coming in. Thank you all for sharing. We'll have, I think, two more polls throughout, so keep on sharing. Perfect. Yes, and also thank you, I see people already doing this. If it's other and you don't see your big challenge on here, type it in the chat and we'll speak to that too. All right, I'll give 10 more seconds. 9, 8. I won't count down the whole time for you all. Okay, end poll and share results. Okay, so you should all see this. So we have the majority selected finding qualified candidates. Yes, we will talk about that a lot today for sure. There's an influx of unqualified candidates coming in right now. Competing for high demand skills. Interesting. Yep, with AI. And then third is retaining top talent. It's a good one. And managing a high volume of applicants. We do have a couple who selected others, so we can show that as well. All right, thank you, everybody. And Carol-Lyn, I'd love for you to kick us off with the report and a few fun facts you want to cover specifically.
You bet, Jane. I'm so excited to be here today to share what is one of the kind of most favorite times of year at DICE, which is tech salary report time. This is a report that we do every year. We've done it for 20 years, and it's our flagship report of the year. This report is written in a way that we do two versions of it, one that is from the perspective of the hiring team, and the other that's from the perspective of tech professionals. And we survey over 3,000 tech professionals across the US to understand the trends that are shaping both hiring and career decisions. And we have a lot of really interesting takeaways from the salary this or from the report this year. I think everyone can agree we're in a very strange time. There's a lot of change happening. There are, at any given time, any of the individual pressures that are on the market right now would be weird and interesting, but we're experiencing many all at the same time right now. So some of that showed up in the report, and I'm excited to share some of those tidbits with everybody today. So when we look at the last 20 years, one of the major takeaways from this year's tech salary report is that tech salaries have plateaued over the last 2 decades when you adjust for inflation. So this means that while compensation has increased somewhat, the real purchasing power of salaries has remained largely the same over 20 years. And with a lot of things shifting around workplace expectations and rising costs, it does create a challenging environment, both for job seekers and for employers. And I think that that's kind of a really interesting point that people, when we're looking at satisfaction around salary right now, when you look at it adjusted for inflation, you can kind of see where people are concerned, even though we've seen the actual dollar amounts rise over the years. Ted, I know that you are talking to a lot of hiring companies and a lot of job seekers as well. How is this impacting the folks that you're talking to?
Yeah, I think we're in the middle of one of the strangest markets that I think any of us have ever, and I've been saying that for the last, I don't know, 5, 10 years, but it just keeps
Right.
getting more and more
Weirder.
interesting. I think since what this doesn't necessarily show is interest rates also have had a big impact on the market as the Feds started raising rates, trying to cool off, the really overly hyped tech market in 2021. Things have started to slow down and normalize a little bit. So that had an impact just in terms of like overall demand in the marketplace. We saw a lot of layoffs happening and things like that. We're now kind of coming out of that cycle where interest rates have started coming down. Demand we've seen started ticking up quite a bit just this year. And so, but it's really interesting to see salaries remaining this flat over a 20-year period. That's a very long window of time to look at things. I've been in the market about 20 years and I have seen it. It's really going up and down a lot, but inflation, you don't think about, I guess we're all thinking about inflation now because it's so prevalent, but it really does have an impact on purchasing power. But I think, overall, if you look at this, that's probably accurate that things have stayed pretty flat. It's specific roles you really have to drill down on because some of them are in higher demand than others, and that also has an impact on compensation. So
Yeah. I'd love to see, we have one question from the audience, and again, we want to keep this interactive. So Rachel Duke asked, curious as to the data points on this for highly cleared tech professionals. Do you have any insight on that, Carol-Lyn? And right before you answer, also, if everyone, all attendees could share, I'm curious the mix of who's a hiring manager, recruiter, who's on the hiring side versus who's looking for a job or a candidate. If you could type that into chat so we know the mix of the audience as well. But sorry, Carol-Lyn. Yeah, curious as to the data points on this for highly cleared tech professionals.
Yeah, that's a great question, Rachel. And the data that we collected for this was not focused on cleared professionals. It was tech professionals as a whole across the US. But that is something, our sister company, Clearance Jobs, is highly focused on cleared professionals. So that's something that potentially, I don't know, Jane, if we're doing after webinar follow-up with the audience, but I can find out if we have any data that relates to highly cleared
Yeah.
security. I think my guess is that it's probably, my guess would be that salaries have probably risen a little bit more for highly cleared professionals versus non, but would have to look into that for sure.
Perfect. We'll send whatever data afterwards. So great question. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. I think, when we move on to other insights that are, coming from the report, one of the most eye-opening statistics from our research, we can go to the next slide, is that nearly half of employed tech professionals are actively looking for a new job. And that is a significant jump from last year. It's a 29% increase from last year. That's pretty staggering of a jump year over year. But I think to the point, there's a lot going on in the market and in people's lives right now, right? So when we look at that, there's kind of 4 key reasons that came out in the research that nodded to why people are starting to look around more. First, it does come back to salary dissatisfaction. 41% of tech professionals feel satisfied with their compensation, which is an all-time low. So many believe that they're underpaid compared to their peers, which came out pretty strongly. The second, there's a lot of concern about job security. Ted nodded to or mentioned, that there have been a lot of layoffs last year, and they have increased 7 percentage points year over year when we were looking at last year's kind of environment. So those job security fears are really pushing tech professionals to explore new opportunities. In addition to that, people are feeling like there's some limited salary growth. So fewer professionals received raises or bonus, and merit-based raises declined significantly in 2024. And then fourth, there are a lot of shifting expectations around the workplace. So benefits like remote work and professional development are being rolled back, and that's leaving professionals unsatisfied with their current employers when they're experiencing that. So I think that for the recruiters who are in our audience, this creates both opportunity and challenge. There's a larger pool of candidates, but also it increases the competition and influx of applications. So we talked earlier about an influx of unqualified applicants coming in. I think some of that is because of this dissatisfaction with for tech professionals in their current roles.
This
We'll
makes
talk.
so much sense. If, sorry, Jess, if you go back to the last slide, just to step on this for a little bit, and Ted, I'm sure you have some thoughts too. It makes perfect sense after the previous slide, right? Where if the salary has stayed the same, and even with our poll earlier, one of the top 3 or 4 choices was retention. It's pay everybody more. It seems that there's a clear correlation here, right? You want to keep the best talent, then make sure they're satisfied. Where do you think, Ted, do you have any thoughts on where this stems from and why the salary is staying so low? And especially if we're seeing clear correlation to that driving people to leave or look for new opportunities?
Yeah, I think it all boils down to you know, budgets of organizations trying to do more with less, and that obviously has an impact on, you know, what people take home in their paychecks every week. So I think as executives have tried to be more cautious over the last few years, that's created this, you know, bubble simmering under the surface where these highly qualified candidates are starting to say, you know what, the market's starting to improve. I can go find a better job. This company's not stable. I'm going to go find one that is. This company's trying to get me to go into the office. I'm going to go find a remote job. So, you know, all those things lead to this statistic, which is incredibly eye-opening. If you're a hiring manager, an executive, look at that number. 47% of your team are job seeking right now. So in a few months, is half your team going to turn over? Like, that's something you need to think about. And in addition to that, there's 2 ways to look at this. There's the, oh my gosh, my whole team might turn over. But then there's also the, wow, there's a lot of people that I can tap into if I'm hiring right now. And it's not going to last that long. As soon as the market heats up, we've seen it before. Look at 2020, you know, kind of that April to July period when the market just took off. Recruiters were in the highest demand profession that we've ever seen. It's starting to happen. The recruiters that I know that have been job seeking are all landing opportunities. Recs are starting to increase. Job postings are up. The window is not very long. So if I'm a hiring manager, if I'm an executive, I'm saying this is the time right now to go fill my roles, get my team straightened out, and get these projects rolling that we've been working on. So I'd look at it from 2 angles, right? It's scary, but it's a great time to be hiring.
I think there's a lot of conversations that also are happening in organizations that aren't necessarily directly related to salary. So the other, clear data point that was coming up in the research is that, while tech professionals do care about the salary, they're also caring about the environment that they're working in. And companies are really grappling with the return to office mandates that are happening. That balance that tech professionals have really appreciated over the last several years that have, come up during more of a candidate market, so to say, over the last few years. So it's going to be interesting to see how companies find the right balance with, the things that they're trying to achieve on the business side versus, really putting an emphasis on employee satisfaction and where some of those, hot topics are going to land. So I think, it's both about salary, but then it's also about the environment that we're providing for our employees.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so moving on, another thing that was very clear or a trend that we're seeing in the data is a growing demand for AI related skills. And tech professionals working with AI earn an 18% salary premium over their peers, which we knew there was a lot of movement happening here, but that 18% was a little surprising to me, just how quickly that has shot up. Job satisfaction for AI professionals, even when controlling for salary levels, is higher. So I think that's interesting. Senior leaders are more likely to be involved with AI initiatives, signaling a continued investment in the space. And another really interesting point here is that natural language processing saw the biggest salary increase at 20% year over year, the highest among all tech skills. So what does this mean for employers? AI skills are in demand and companies need to be competitive, but not just in salary, also in career development, workplace flexibility, and the ability to work on cutting edge projects. Um, I I think that another interesting thing as we go on, I know that there were a lot of there's a lot in the news about AI and the way that it's changing the landscape. I think there's a lot for companies to lean in here on really understanding how to support their employee base in the adoption of AI across all tech roles, as well as giving people that access to those really interesting projects that are coming up as we embrace AI.
Yeah, I'm curious for our audience if you've started asking a lot of your candidates in the tech space AI questions, if those are factored into the qualification process, asking for their level of experience or how they've leveraged AI. If you can put that in the chat, anyone in the audience, just how this is impacting, and we'll have another poll coming soon. But yeah, I'm sure we all hear AI and probably say AI all day, every day at this point, right?
Great. Jane, while we're getting answers from the audience, I do want to just mention that Megan from our team just added in a link to answer the question about cleared professionals. So for the our person who asked that question about highly cleared professionals, check in the chat for a link to more information there.
Perfect. Yeah, Megan, you can share the link to everyone. Perfect. And we are seeing, let's see. Da, 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 da. What will AI mean to the, oh, we have a question that came in. Whoever wants to take this, Ted or Carol-Lyn. What will AI mean to the future of recruitment and staffing industry? I will talk about this a little bit in a few slides, but if you two have any thoughts on this, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, it's a great question. What will it mean for any job or a career that's out there? Again, with anything, there's sort of two sides. Recruiting to me is a relationship oriented business. So your job search is incredibly personal. Your emotions that you feel as you're looking for a job and going through the recruitment cycle and getting offers and negotiating. There's a lot of human to human interaction that happens in that arena. Yeah, there's a lot that can be automated. There's a lot of filtering and automated. You can use it to generate content. There's a million different ways you can use AI to make you more efficient as a recruiter. But I think at the end of the day, there's so much human to human, I guess, necessitated contact that happens through the process that I feel like the function of recruiting will always have a human involved. But absolutely, can we be more efficient with AI? 100%. And it's getting better and better. It's exponentially going to get better and better as the years go on. But yeah, I think there will always be a human involved in the process. 5 years from now, you can play this back and tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like it's just an integral part of that journey for a candidate and for a hiring manager. So
I agree, Ted.
Agreed.
One of the things that's interesting about what we're seeing at Dice is, as we improve our platform to help people source and find talent and leverage AI and machine learning to do that, I think what's happening is this, it's the combination of human and the machine, right? And that's where I think AI has the best possible impact on humanity and on the world, is when we combine the power of AI with humans who are so much better at staying human, turns out. So, when we look at what's happening with recruiters, I can see us giving recruiters tools that make the finding easier, but it is going to always be up to the human to make the connection. It's always going to be up to the human to help other humans really understand what the opportunities are and where they want to land at work. But I love that we're seeing an improvement in how, we can help support folks in finding the right talent and finding talent that's a good fit for the role by leveraging the power of AI.
Yes, and we are seeing, so Benyam wrote in the chat, I would say for asking about AI, I would say that what swim lanes have you focused on within AI? Also inform them of business challenges of how other companies are utilizing it and the benefits to see what industries they might be interested in. So definitely coming in into the questions as people are hiring in the tech space. And quick note, going back to job retention side of things, and if salaries are a stickler, what else can you offer? If the salaries can't be increased, what can they offer for retention? And a draw is we just described the job stability. That's a good draw in this economy. Client image in the market, job responsibilities like growth opportunity, things like that. So great feedback. Thank you, everyone.
The next piece that I want to share from the tech salary report comes into what some of the recruitment challenges are for 2025. And, when we look at all of the information that we've just reviewed, really asking the question of how does this actually impact hiring? There's 3 top challenges that came up from the research with recruiters. One is that with all these folks out there actually looking and on the hunt for a job now, there is an applicant overload. So hiring teams are drowning in applications, but a lot of those candidates that are applying are lacking the required skills. So recruiters need better tools to filter and identify the right talent and the people who are, a good qualified candidate very quickly. The second thing that we're seeing is retention struggles, and this goes right back to that 47% of tech professionals seeking new jobs. Companies need strong retention strategies. So that comes back to competitive pay, career development opportunities, and flexibility. Those are really the key factors that bubbled up in the research. The third thing that recruiters are facing now is the competition for high demand skills. So while there's a large applicant pool, 71% of organizations are struggling to find qualified candidates. And obviously, the roles in AI and ML are especially competitive, driving up salaries in those particular areas. So these challenges all highlight the need for smarter and AI-powered hiring solutions. Jane, I know that you've got a lot to say about AI-powered solutions, so I'll hand that back over to you.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that in this section. And I'm curious if everybody, when salaries, at least I very much hope, being in the tech space myself, right? If everybody can take on the recruitment side, take this report from Dice and bring this back as evidence to the hiring managers, the C-suite, like what needs to be done to stay competitive and to get and retain the top talent. It's really these factors that were just listed out by Carol-Lyn. So it's a really great tool to keep in your pocket, this report. So I think if we haven't already, we'll put the link to the full report in the chat for sure. There's a ton of just golden nuggets in there. I highly recommend checking it out. And Ted, before we go into the AI section of things, anything to add on the report itself or what you're seeing with those three pillars?
I think, well, it'll dovetail maybe nicely into the next section, but we keep seeing and hearing like AI and ML, and
Yes.
when you think about specialized skills that are in demand, I just saw CompTIA had put out a report that in the Bay Area, San Jose, San Francisco, the percentage of job postings that have ML or AI is nudging up on about 10% of the jobs that are out there in the tech world. So if I'm in tech or engineering, that number keeps growing. So pointing my career towards learning AI, getting into the space, getting more familiar with some of those tools will play into, your overall career journey. And if I'm a recruiter and I find candidates that have those skills, I might maybe want to speed up the hiring process because I know they're in high demand right now, and that's only getting, more and more popular. So that's really the only thing to add.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate it. All right, we will jump into, so I realized I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. Sorry, that's something I tend to do. I love to focus on other people. Hopefully that's a benefit in this AI world, right? The EQ side of things. So I'm Jane Serra. I'm the VP of Growth here at Daxtra. So I'll definitely talk about AI-powered recruitment solutions without getting salesy, I promise. But yes, we have a poll, Jess. Thank you. We can launch that poll as we get into AI. And this is all about how you are using AI in recruitment right now. So how is your organization currently using AI in recruitment? Not at all, experimenting, using it for one or two, or fully integrated. This will be a fun one. Thank you all for submitting. I'll give a few more seconds. So again, how your organization is currently using AI in recruitment today. Okay, it's slowing down so we can, share results. Thank you. So I hope you can all see this now. It looks like experimenting with AI tools. Kudos to everybody there. Using AI for one or two functions, resume parsing, screening, engagement. Love to hear it. A second, not at all. Don't worry. There's time. You can get there. And this is interesting. No one is fully integrating AI into the hiring process. I think everyone is just very modest and feels like they're never going to be fully integrated. But thank you. And if you have any specific questions or comments on this, feel free to put that in the chat and we'll talk about it. Thank you all. Okay, so as we jump in here, as we've spoken about a little bit, there's a wide disagreement on speed and impact of AI. So this is a stat from an SIA report from late last year. Is to what extent do you anticipate that AI will have replaced current activities involved in the full recruiting cycle? And you can see some people said 10%, others said 75% of the recruitment cycle will be replaced. This is just so interesting, and it shows how everybody has really no idea. We're guessing, right? We don't fully know. So the average is 39%. So if we go to the next slide, the other side of this, right? 62% of HR leaders reported limited practical experience with AI-powered applications. 54% of HR leaders have only an intermediate understanding of AI fundamentals. So if we see that 39% plus of the actual recruitment process is expected to be replaced, maybe up to 75%, but only about half of HR leaders have an understanding of that, there's a gap that has to be closed there, right? It's a major gap. So if we go to the next slide, these are the three different areas, and there's a lot of stats I'm throwing at you. We will share these slides. I saw that come up in chat. But this is another one from SIA from late last year. So in the next 3 years, when asking recruiters and HR heads, in the next 3 years, which of the following areas do you estimate will have replaced 25% or more of your current activities through AI? These are the areas that were definitely selected. So the top one was primary AI disruption in candidate screening, skills assessment, matching and selection, and redeployment, so internal mobility. And then secondary in candidate sourcing, compliance, reporting, and analytics, and limited in AI disruption in sales, biz dev, none, but that's a 0%. So sales and biz dev. This goes back to exactly what Ted was just speaking about, where the relationship side of things is key in recruitment. And that is something we don't see that can be replaced. And I know that's a scary word for everybody right now. In recruiting, in tech, the word replaced when we're talking about AI. But if we think about it, and we'll get to this in future slides, but it's replacing the tedious work you don't want to do so that you can focus on the relationship building and those deep conversations you're having. Because who knew the importance of EQ that in this current age of AI, where AI just can't match the human side of things. And like Ted said, look, you can prove us wrong in 10, 20 years, and we'll see if we're eating our words. Hopefully not. But if we go to the next slide. So 88% of HR leaders believe AI should complement human capabilities, not replace them. So practical implementations, this goes into what we've been talking about, where what should AI be replacing? How should AI be helping us as recruiters? And then what should we be focusing on the human side? So one thing to keep in mind with AI is that the data that is being put into whatever AI tools you're leveraging, the cleanliness of that data and the quality of that data is so important. It is number one. Because you've probably heard this expression before when we talk about AI, but garbage in, garbage out. So the foundation in TA, all TA data is built on accurately parsing resumes, job descriptions to match those skills. So making sure that your database, your ATS, your CRM is as clean as possible. No ATS or CRM is going to be perfect, right? But as clean as possible, deduping, making sure it's enriched, the data is enriched and up to date. That is paramount as you're leveraging AI for the back end. It can replace the tedious behind the scenes work, right? So recruiters can focus on relationships. So at Daxtra, we strongly believe that the humanized candidate engagement, that piece, it improves conversion rates. So if you think about even when you're shopping, right? If we can compare this to an experience we all have, if you're shopping and you're online or you're looking to buy a tool online, keep it tech focused, and you go to ask a question and you get a bot answer, and it's just pulling from the Q&A section of the website and trying to give you answers, but it's not at all what you're asking. Everyone gets frustrated, right? There's certain situations where you're like human, or if you're on a phone and you just say human representative. So that situation, it's the same in recruitment. So if you get a bot or a static answer, a static response, that's going to everybody, it's a turnoff, and it's a negative experience or point of experience in the candidate experience overall. So making sure that you bring in a human in the right point in the journey, and for those top candidates that have been identified, and talking to them one-to-one, that definitely improves conversion rates. It improves the employer brand. So all of that. This is why it's so instrumental to keep the human side of things, and recruiters are not being replaced. The tedious work behind the scenes of finding the right candidates and having to search for them, that can be replaced by tools. I mean, Daxtra's one, but there's tools that can be leveraged to find the best talent and bring them to you, and then you as a human can talk to them. Let's see. Uncertainty and security concerns. So let me see. There is some chat. Mentioned that they are developing AI bots to resume sourcing and screening, and review how this impacts recruiters and the reliance on job boards. Great question. So at Daxtra, at least, we work with Dice. We're partners, and we can source candidates from Dice. So if you have a Dice partnership and then you're also leveraging Daxtra, we can pull those candidates and automate that side for you. So we can bring you that short list that you can then reach out to via text. We highly recommend texting because you get a way higher response rate than emails. So we definitely work with job boards on that side. Let me know if that answers your question. If not, feel free to follow up. One thing to note with AI, though, with AI adoption, is there are those security concerns and uncertainty over bias, because at the end of the day, AI is trained by humans. Humans introduce the bias to AI. So making sure that when you are leveraging any tech, that you are training it properly with redacted components that might introduce bias, right? If it's name, if it's location, if it's certain colleges that were attended or programs, you can redact that so that the skills are really what is focused on and not anything that could introduce bias. So things like that are really important. On the security side with AI, we recommend using a holistic or federated approach. So bringing in several different AI tools and models in one, so that helps just be a more robust approach and safer. We do not recommend leveraging ChatGPT. It is open. It is not very secure. So leveraging a proprietary tool like Daxtra. If we go to the next slide. So this just shows an example of, per somebody's question in the chat, of a tool like Daxtra pulling in from Dice. So then it's pulling from your exact database and from Dice. So you can see this is pulling from Dice from any candidates that are there, and it's bringing you that short list proactively. Again, going back to the human side so that you can engage one-to-one. So the sourcing and matching and getting that short list can be automated for you, and then you bring in the human element for the actual one-to-one engagement. Then if we go, so this is, if I could say one thing on AI and the human component, this, I'm sure you've heard this phrase before, but it's a really great one. AI won't replace recruiters, but recruiters who use AI will replace those who don't. And this is the same that we're seeing with all of tech, right? In the tech hiring report, AI is becoming part of the conversation. We have to embrace it to different degrees and see what's out there and how we can leverage it and not be so scared of it. And those who are using it are going to definitely be the strong suit. And Carol-Lyn and Ted, I'm sorry if I went through that, but if you have any additions or anything to add to that conversation, feel free to add to it.
I think, Jane, one of the questions that, going back to the question that somebody asked in the chat about, companies who are developing their own bots for sourcing and screening, something you said earlier really resonates here, which is garbage in, garbage out, right? So yes, people can definitely start developing their own tools to start to assist with some of these things, but it's always going to take the humans to be able to make those inhuman connections, to understand, like, everybody can look great on paper, but when you get,
Yes.
into the process of deciding whether or not that person is going to be the right fit in the team that you're hiring for, that's where recruiters are always going to have an advantage. We can all score well on an assessment, or look good from those flat data points. But, assessing whether or not the person actually shows up the way that the team needs them to show up is, always going to be critical for a recruiter. And then as far as like the reliance on job boards, what we're seeing our customers say to us over and over and over again is that specialization is getting more and more important. So, coming when you're specifically recruiting for tech talent, coming to a specialist job board like Dice is going to give you that kind of leg up, instead of going to kind of the broad job boards to find that specialist talent, especially when we're starting to look at AI and machine learning and some of those more in demand, high level skills. Having a specialist job board that can help you find those candidates who have those skills is a lot more doable on a specialist job board than it is on the generalist one. So that, just going back to that question.
It's a great point. And I think, Carol-Lyn, you mentioned earlier one of the bigger issues that came up on this report and what recruiters are struggling with right now is the inundation of applicants, because there's really two factors we're hearing from our clients at Daxtra is that there's an inundation where people are using easy apply, right? Any kind of quick apply or using AI to apply at mass, at scale. And that's bringing in people that just simply aren't qualified because they're just applying to as many jobs as possible to see what sticks. Then there's also the aspect of people using AI for their resumes to enhance their resumes and the lack of accuracy there. There are some great tools that are being used. I think Teal is one for where they can improve their resume or get tips for improving their resume for a specific application, but it uses your data, not embellishing it, let's say, with other stats. And like if for ChatGPT, it could just create all kinds of information and things that are just simply not true for your experience. So with all of these things happening on the candidate side, then the only way to combat the AI is with AI, right? You have to kind of do the same thing. What is it, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing? Only works in some cases, but I think this is one where you have to leverage AI to be able to filter through the noise and enrich and validate and get that short list together. And I know on Dice as well, you're able to just filter and find those candidates with the right skill sets. So for sure.
Yeah,
Ted,
it's
any? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
there's a really interesting thing that's coming up with some of our customers right now, which is, we're hearing fairly regularly that they're getting candidates who are applying, and it turns out their applications look really very, very similar, right? And they've clearly used the same AI to apply, or AI assist to apply to the same job, even though they are definitely different candidates. They're real humans. It's not like these are bots applying for the job, but people are going to have to figure out how to raise above the mediocrity that these large language models are kind of built to to deliver on, because they're, they're taking a sample set from across um, the internet and coming back and trying to help you create your application, which in these cases we're seeing it doesn't do a great job of differentiating you from the next person that's helping apply for that same job. So that's super interesting. And I think that that's another, call out of where a human touch is really critical. Your AI may not necessarily pick up on the fact that the candidates are applying with the, the same information generated from another AI. It might, but in them, it's really easy for a human to spot that. So I think that's interesting. And to your point, it is important for us to make sure that we are leaning in and leveraging AI to help us sift through all of that massive amount of data that's coming in with, additional applications.
Great. Ted, are you seeing also this overuse of AI on either side or on the candidate side, especially just with bringing, or how can people stand out and make sure they're on that short list? Is there, I mean, are video applications or quick notes, are those on the rise to combat this?
We're seeing a little bit of everything. And I think you're right. Like combating AI with AI is just creating a lot of issues in the market. Where yes, there's a lot of applicants. Now we're trying to use advanced filtering techniques, and then people are getting upset because they're getting filtered out of a job they're a good fit for. So we've seen companies trying to move their like assessments and screening earlier in the process, which isn't a good experience for a job seeker. You'd like to talk to someone first to find out more about the role and then take the 3-hour coding challenge. But in order to weed out all these applicants, some companies are moving that large coding challenge to the beginning of the process, turning off a lot of good candidates. So it's just creating a lot of issues across the board. Yeah, I don't know exactly what will help solve that, but one thing that is, I'm going to get stuff thrown at me, but one thing that we've seen our clients doing is they're moving towards that hybrid work environment. So, 2 or 3 days in the office, must be located in whatever city that they're in, limiting the candidate pool to, more local individuals. That cuts the applicant pool down, and it's not great because I think a lot of people love working remotely, but that shift is definitely paramount from what we're seeing. And I think part of it is just, going back to having candidates that can be in the office a couple days a week, limits the amount of applicants that you're going to get on a large job posting. So.
It's interesting because it seems like that's going back to the negative experience that might have people looking for new jobs, right? So we're in this kind of cycle of figuring things out.
Yeah.
And I wonder, so it's a big testing. I think we're in this area, right? I'm in marketing and recruiting and any side of the tech world. We're just in a massive testing phase where we just have to see what works for each of our specific companies. We're making sure we're not weeding out the best fit candidates, how we're retaining those candidates, what to draw, what's pushing them away. So yeah, fully agree. Are there any other questions? I think we answered them as we went along, but if there's any more questions, I think we have time for one more, if there is.
Jane, while we're waiting
Let's see.
for
Yeah.
questions, recruiting has a lot of similarities to marketing, which is where I've spent my whole career. And the thing that I have, every single day as my team is adopting AI and, really leaning into that to help us with our marketing activities, there is the same core principle is still true today for marketing. And there's a correlation or a corollary principle that's true for recruiting. The customer experience, if we keep the customer experience at the heart of what we're doing in marketing, as we test our way into knowing what will or won't help us from this AI perspective, we are going to stay truer to the outcomes that we want to drive, just keeping that customer at the heart of it. And the same thing is true on the recruiting side. If we are keeping candidates in mind as we're trying to create experiences and create this path that helps us find the right candidate for our rec, that will help us avoid a lot of challenges. We can get excited and we can kind of get distracted maybe even by all of the new shiny things that are coming with AI, but keeping that candidate at the center of the objective is what will help everybody in the long run.
Yes, I love that. I heard and I know we are at time. I heard somebody say this, and I wish I remembered their name to give them credit, but they said AI should not be your OKR. It should help you achieve your OKRs. So whatever they are, it shouldn't be, oh, we need to, we've all heard this from certain board members in the past or Ray or C-suite, I'm sure, like we need to do more AI, but it's more so, okay, what are your actual goals for the year, whatever your department is, however many roles you need to fill, and then how can you leverage AI to achieve those goals? I love that, Carol-Lyn. Well, thank you, everybody. Today we are at time. I hope we answered all of your questions throughout. You can always follow up with us on LinkedIn. I believe all three of us are on LinkedIn actively. Oh, OKR, objectives and key results. Sorry, that might be my marketing speaking, the acronyms. Objectives and key results, whatever your goals are for the year. But yeah, happy to answer any questions if you follow any of us on LinkedIn and reach out. And thank you all. There is one more poll as you exit. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you, Carol-Lyn. Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.